hopefully you can see. Great. Okay, I'm sorry for that. So what I was then going to show you, so now you can see it, which will make much more sense, is BuzzSumo. So we're all about data. So if you wanted to see the most shared content on e-learning, we can type in a topic and we can see the most shared content on e-learning. So we can sort it by total shares or by the shares of a particular network. So you can see that. As I was saying, you can also see the most shared content for a domain. So you could say, what's the most shared content on BuzzFeed, for example? But you might also want to see just the picture posts on BuzzFeed. So you could say, let's do BuzzFeed.com pictures. And now let's see, what are the picture posts that are working best for BuzzFeed.com? Or we could choose any other site here. So in terms of BuzzSumo, we're really all about data and showing you data and understanding what's working. And once we've got that data, we can analyze it in lots of different ways. So for example, if we look at data on search engine optimization, SEO, we can see that most shares take place on Twitter. We can see what content formats work best, for example. And that varies from topic to topic. So if we look at kitchens, we can see it's different when it comes to kitchens. So the most shared networks are Facebook and Pinterest. The most shared content format are list posts. I think they're things like 5 beautiful kitchens and those sorts of things. So you can see it's quite different as we look for different topics. And so what we're interested in BuzzSumo is data. So what we looked at here was to do analysis of image posts with Canva and show you what works. So in terms of our analysis, we took over 100 million posts and we crunched through the data on those 100 million posts. And I'm just going to show you what we found, and then I'm going to show you a particular type of post which seemed to perform very well, which we've called the picture list post, and I'm going to show you real examples of those this afternoon. So firstly, we looked at Facebook posts, and so looking at 100 million Facebook posts, what we found was that those with an image had 372 interactions on average. So these are average numbers for the posts, but those without an image, 164. So an interaction is a share, like, or a comment. So you can see that including an image has a significant impact on the interactions that you get. So you certainly want to be doing that. In terms of the implementation of the Open Graph images on Facebook, it was even more marked here. Those posts that had Open Graph images implemented were getting 190 shares on average compared to 61 without Open Graph images implemented. So if you don't know how to do that, you can talk to your developers, for example, or your website, but it's definitely worth having your Open Graph images implemented for Facebook. And we can pick that up with you separately if you want to talk about that. And these are just some examples here. When we looked at Twitter, this was quite interesting. We looked at the different types of Twitter cards and the number of shares they got. And I think we were expecting photos to be the most shared. So I think we were expecting the large photo to be the most shared. But you can see actually it was the summary and large image which got shared the most. I mean, significantly more so, almost 5 times more than the others. So if you're looking at Twitter cards, the summary and image, really important. We also looked at so there's an example of a Twitter card, for example. We also looked at the ratio of images to text. And I think this is particularly important if you're looking at writing blog posts, how many images for so many words. And just to explain this graph, on the left-hand side, we have the average number of shares per post. And here we were looking at, I think, a few million blog posts. So the average number of shares per post, and then the number of words to images or images to words at the bottom here. And we can see there's a sweet spot where those posts that had an image every 75 to 100 words got, on average, far more shares than other posts. So it seems to be a fairly good guideline to look at, which is to make sure that you've got an image around every 75 to 100 words. And obviously it'll vary depending on your post, but that's the average over millions of posts. So it's quite good data to look at. So in analyzing this, we analyzed all these posts, but something sort of struck us. As we looked through the posts, we found some posts did particularly well. some image posts work really, really well. And I've just put some examples here on the screen for you. But you can see they started to get hundreds of thousands of shares. And if you're like me and you write blog posts, you know it's hard to get 1,000 shares. It's hard to get a few thousand shares. To get hundreds of thousands, okay, some of these are big sites. But there's something about that content. And what was common was they were what we call picture list posts. And I'll just explain what that is. It's really a curated series of images put together in a single post. And I'll show you that top one, 10 D-Day landing sites. So this was on Huffington Post. But what they showed was then and now pictures for D-Day landing sites. And they were quite dramatic, particularly like this sort of image. So it was then and now images, but there's a series of curated images. So that's what we mean by a picture list post. And so we start to understand, why did they work so well? And I think our views on that is that they really have the ingredients of almost a perfect piece of content. They have images. We know images work well. You know, images get transmitted to the brain quickly, they engage people, they emotionally engage people. But they also have an element of curation. And curation is great because it really does a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Your curator sifts through lots of content and data to give you what's relevant. So we all like curated posts because it makes our life a lot easier. And there's just too much to read. We like curators. And a further step on is lists. You can have a particular type of post, which is a curated list post, and it's slightly different in its structure. It might structure 7 steps on how to do things, for example. So a list post has the promise of something which is fairly contained, you know, five ways you'll learn how to do something. So it has a particular promise, a list post, which people like in clicking through to see it or to share it. So a picture list post seems to have almost sort of the perfect ingredients, really. And so curation is where you just curate content. It could be like a curator in a museum who curates content or exhibits for a museum. Someone just asked a question about what is curation. That's what we mean, is curating materials and content that's relevant to your topic. And picture list posts can be used in so many ways. And the more we explored this concept, the more we saw that picture list posts can do a number of things: explain concepts, tell stories. And I thought the best way to sort of demonstrate this was just to simply flip through some of those posts as opposed to talking to you about it too much. So I'm just going to flip through some examples of what we thought were good picture list posts and posts that have the potential to go viral. So the first one is explaining a concept. This is a post from BuzzFeed, and it's really questions are really about the universe and the size of the universe, and it starts with the Earth. And as we go through the pictures, so that it expands out and gets you to get a sense of the size of the universe. And if I scroll down to quite a few of these for a moment, it's taking us out further and further in the universe. I particularly like these pictures down here. So we live in the Milky Way. We live in this little dot here. I'm not sure that Google Maps has yet mapped the Milky Way. But all the stars you ever see at night are just part of that little yellow circle. And so that's just our galaxy. And when you see the size of our galaxy, this little dot on the left compared to the wider galaxies, you get a sense of scale. So it's a great post because it's just beginning to explain a concept. So that's one way you can use a picture list post. But you can also do a curated post. So this is a simple example of a curated post. It's a post about overpopulation and overconsumption on The Guardian. But there's a fantastic list, a curated series of images which demonstrate that concept. So these are all images which will demonstrate this thing about overconsumption and overpopulation. And I'll just go down. This is a particular one that I like, which is a surfer in the sea in Java, and just surfing in just garbage, really. So they make the point really powerfully. So that's an example of a curated post. But also, because you've got a sequence of images, you can show things over time. So this is an example post from the New York Times. It's actually a wonderful collection of images of 4 sisters over time, starting in 1975, and they've now got 40 years worth of images. And curated images can be great at showing the passing of time. So that's another way you can use these posts. Lots of other things you can do. One of the things you can do is comparisons. So I wanted to show you this as a comparison post. So this is about climate change, but it's showing you lake change in New Mexico from 94 to 2013. And it's got lots of these, lake change in Iraq over similar time frames, for example. So a curated series of images can really show you comparisons over time, and that could be useful for you, whether it's showing your products over time and how they've changed, whatever might be of interest to your particular audience. Here's a different example of a curated set of comparisons. These are children's school lunches, so they've sort of done typical school lunches. This is the one for Italy. I'm sure my kids' lunchboxes never looked anything like this. I wish they looked that healthy. This is one for Finland, one for South Korea, for France, lots of red meat there, for example, Brazil, and so on. So you can see it's a really useful way of making comparisons to use images. So you can think in your own context, how might you use comparisons for your particular field. Other things that picture list posts are great at is telling stories, and I like this one. There are loads and loads of examples, but I just like this one. This was a woman whose fiance called off their wedding shortly before the wedding took place, and so and it's how she reacted, and she basically decided to trash her wedding dress. So we have a series of images as she trashed her wedding dress, and I quite liked it as you move through. So her parents got involved here, her mother and father here, a dad involved here, for example. And actually, somebody else has taken this all the way through, showing her taking the trash dress to the wedding dress shop, putting it on display, and ironically, that wedding dress is now used to help sell other wedding dresses, and it's on display in the bridal shop. So it's just a nice way in which you can tell stories through images. So you can think about how can you tell stories in your own space, in your own market. Here's a different example of telling a story, which has a lot more emotional impact, I think. So these are just a series of really just simple images and words. So it's not real, John Crawford, 2014. I love you too, Sean Bell, 2006, and you'll see the hashtag is last words. What are you following me for? Trayvon Martin, 2012. I don't have a gun, stop shooting, Michael Brown. And you'll instantly understand this is about the deaths of young black men in the States. I can't breathe. So it tells quite a powerful story through a simple set of images, and you can do that because of the emotional impact of images as well. These are not particularly emotional images, but the text on the images is. So you can tell stories in lots of different ways using picture list posts. The other thing you can do is you can show people how to do things with a picture list post. So you can take people through processes. This is how to dry nail polish, not something I do very often, but education have used these types of posts for a long time, of taking people through a series of steps. So that's something that you could do. And sort of finally, just on terms of the examples, here's one of kitchen designers. So this is showing you different ways that you can save space in a kitchen. And these curated posts are great because they really allow you to sort of almost brainstorm ideas and to look at them, and instantly you can say, yes, that's relevant, that's not relevant. So what's lovely about picture list posts is you can instantly scan them. So people like being able to scan them. So they're just a number of examples of how you can use picture list posts. And so if I jump back down here, I'm just going to make sure that I've covered everything. So I just jumped through a few, but yeah, explaining concepts. I love the BuzzFeed one. It got a huge number of shares, 2.5 million shares. That's evidently the average size of the comets in our universe compared to Los Angeles. So that's a bit of a scary image, and it's just one in that sequence. The curated post of The Guardian, which makes that point, over 300, I think it's now actually over 600,000 shares, that post. And these are things you can all think about in your context. So story posts. So I showed the example of the story post, and they're great at building a story. Comparisons, visual comparisons, I say, can work great for you. How-to posts. So there's so many ways you can use a picture list post. And then finally, a curation post. So there's just different examples that I came up with. And if you're going to think about how to use them in your area, I just posed a few questions. There's a lot more questions on my post on the Canva website. But you can think about what types of images work best. How can you use images in your area to tell a story? What does a good case study look like in terms of images in your story? What does it look like from your CEO's desk or your CMO's desk or your client's desk? what comparisons are relevant in your industry. Are there how-to posts you could use which take people through a series of screenshots? Can you explain concepts? Can you create images? So there are lots of ways you can do this. So picture list posts are just so powerful. And so I hope that sparks some ideas for you around how you can use it. And what I'm now going to do is pass over to Anna to talk about how you can actually use Canva to help create your picture list posts and create wonderful images using Canva. But I hope that's interesting in terms of what we found from doing the research. And I'll now make Anna the presenter. So let's just...
Cool. Thanks, Steve. Yeah, it's really fascinating to have been walked through a lot of those examples, and obviously visuals have provided some really compelling evidence, and obviously BuzzSumo allows us to see the evidence behind So I'm going to turn it over to Anna, who will actually talk a little bit more about our design school, our strategy, and really kind of showing how the strategies that Steve has talked about and a lot of the kind of statistical evidence that he's walked through has really been applicable to Canva, and she'll also give us some good design takeaways as well.
Yeah, great. Thanks, Hannah. So I guess the first thing really is to look at these examples, and obviously it's fantastic to see these examples by these big publications. But I guess the real question is, how can this help me? How can I apply this to my small business or to my blog to be a powerful marketing tool for me? So before I launch into Canva and show you just how easy it is to use the platform and to create these graphics in really as little as minutes, I just thought I'd share with you a quick story about our experiences with picture list posts and with BuzzSumo's research, which is absolutely fantastic for small businesses to take advantage of. So a few months ago, we created our own blog, the Canva Design School, and I'm just showing that to you here. And what we really started doing was exactly what Steve showed us, which was looking at the successful blogs and seeing what they were doing, and we noticed exactly that they were using images to drive traffic. So what we started doing was creating a lot of our own picture list posts. And it may seem, I suppose, obvious, but I really can't emphasize enough is that your content can be such a powerful driver of traffic for your business. So to give you an idea of what that looks like, I'm going to cut across to our Pinterest. So when we started improving our content, what happened was remarkable. Our Facebook traffic increased 400%. And our Pinterest traffic doubled. And here I'm at the URL for Design School. So this is all the images that appear from our blog. And I'm just going to scroll down and take a look what's happening here. What you can see, which is really fascinating, is that all of the images which are essentially driving traffic to our blog and to our platform are images from inside of our picture list posts. Now, this is just amazing. It's one of the big mistakes I think that a lot of bloggers make is to think that just having a few images is enough. I mean, you should really take advantage of the power that they can provide. So, for example, while a blog banner, for example, is a great hook to put your content out there, being able to take advantage of these picture list formats is just great. And another great thing is, obviously, while Steve was running through all the different types of articles, it can be a little bit overwhelming trying to think of which type of visuals work for me. So this is a great way to gauge that. So, I mean, it's quite obvious here. You can see that infographics are very popular for us. So that tells us that that's what our readers want to see, and how can we create those kind of things that they want to share. So enough of that. Now I'm going to really dig into some designing and show you exactly how you can create these graphics for yourself. So I'm going to run you through some of my favorite design types that I use in a blogging and content environment. So one of them is the blog title, which really is an essential for the beginning of a post, and your custom banner image is actually an OG image. So that was that kind of image that Steve was talking about before. OG just means open graph, which means that you specify an image to be shared. So making sure that these are looking their best in that sense is very important. So what I've just done is I've gone into the design type, and on the left here is our layout library for those of you who haven't seen Canva before. Now all you need to do, these are all editable layouts, so if you have a scroll through, see if there's any that you like. Now let's imagine, for example, we have a food blog. So maybe our first article is about lamingtons, but what if we want to write another article? How do we customize this? So really, the first thing I would do is change the text. So my next article is going to be about blueberries. So I'm just going to drag out the box here to make sure that the text is centered and looking great. Now the next thing, obviously this doesn't look very good with a picture of a lamington in the background. So the other great thing about Canva is that inside our editor, we actually have access to over 1,000,000 stock images that are just available to you at the click of a button. So now I'm going to type in blueberries. And you can do that in the search box up here. So as you can see, you'll be provided with a number of images.
Anna, we just lost a bit of sound there. I don't know if you're doing.
Simply drag it across your design, and just like that, the background's changed. Now we want to make sure that all of our designs are looking as professional as possible. Now, one thing I can say here is that the text isn't super readable. So something that I like to do is to darken the background. So if you're editing your photos like this, you click on the image and then select filter. And what you have here is access to a whole load of professional editing tools that are really easy to navigate and use. So maybe have a play around with filters to see if there's one that really suits what you're trying to do. So I quite like this one here. And now just to make that text even more readable, if we darken the background, and if there's any other changes that we want to make, maybe we want to blur a background. But I'll leave you to have a play around with that. And just like that, in a couple of minutes, you have an original design that is customized for your blog. So another great thing I'll show you before I download the design is collaboration, which, as many of you will know if you work in teams, is that it's really essential to be able to collaborate with your team members, your writers and editors, wherever they are. So to collaborate, all you need to do is select Share, select this link, and what you'll be provided with is an editable link that basically will allow anyone to access your design and edit it just by inserting this URL into their browser, which is really quite amazing and something that almost no other design tool can do. So it's something we're really proud of here at Canva, and it's proved to be very useful in a lot of different business environments. So assuming that all my team members are happy with my design, I now want to download it. Now you'll notice here that one of the images is $1. So many of our images in our stock library are free, but if anything, they're $1, which is a very small price to pay for the custom design that you do receive. So we think.
We just lost you for a second there, Anna, but I know you're just downloading the design to show people. Okay, and I think we're having a slight issue with your sound. At least I am.
Sorry.
Okay, now you're back. Good.
And as you can see here, it's just a fantastic design that's been created in as little as minutes. So all of these layouts that you saw in our library as well, might I add, are created by our amazing team of professional designers. So when you're using Canva, you can rest assured that everything you're creating is the top industry standard. So now I'll run you over one of my other favorite design types, which is the social media graphic. Another thing I might add is that even though a design type is called a social media graphic in Canva, don't be afraid to use it on your blog or any other platform. There's really no restrictions. The guidelines are just there to help you out. And all of our designs are also already formatted to the correct size for each platform, which is a handy thing. So another great list post is quotes. That's something that's been really popular here for us at Canva. So quotes can be a really fun exercise to do, and if you choose the right content, it can really resonate with your audience and be a really shareable kind of content. So here we've got one quote, but let's say that I want to turn it into a different quote for my next post or for a list. So here I'm going to change the text. It's one of my favorite quotes. And now another great thing about Canva is that you can also choose from over 140 different fonts. So fonts can have a really big impact on the tone and style of your design. So I'm going to change the font here. And a small typo there, which can happen. And so now, again, we'll see if there's an image that really suits what we're going for here. Let's try this one. And the great thing is that you can always experiment. So if you're not sure if an image is working, all you need to do is drag and drop another one. So I quite like the look and feel of this image here. So again, I'll just make a few tweaks with the background, with the filters. And I can download again. Or another handy tip I can show you. If an image isn't what you're after, it's always a great option to be able to use a background. So simply delete the background image. And then here you have access to the color wheel, which has literally millions of combinations and colors that you can choose from. So what you can do is choose from a whole range of different colors. That seems to be working better now. And if this is something that you'd like to do, another area in our library which I really love using is our shape, which can be used in a whole number of innovative ways that you might not have expected. So here I've put in a rectangle shape, and you might think that doesn't look very good how it is at the moment. I'll probably agree with you. But look what I'm doing here. This is a transparency slider. So by creating a shape and adding a slight transparency, I've created a nice border. And here I have a nice, really original design for my blog. And so just one other quick design that I really love using and is really great and effective, as Steve showed us, is a custom design, so comparatively showing images over time. So for this one, I'm going to use the custom dimension. So, I mean, you always have access to our library of templates, but if you'd like to create your own original design, you're absolutely welcome to. So you put in the pixels here, which is the size of your design. And if you're wondering what size should my design be, my biggest advice is to find out where it's going. So if it's going on Facebook, find out what Facebook's optimum dimensions are. And if it's going on your blog, what resolution looks best. So it's always quite important to make sure that your images are looking their best. So on the left here, you'll notice a number of grids. And grids are a great tool for dragging and dropping images. So I'm going to drop this grid here. And obviously, while it's great to have access to Canva's amazing stock library, another great tool is to be able to upload your own images. So that's what I'm going to be doing here. So I've just gone to my desktop, and I'm going to drag a couple of my own images that I've taken earlier. So all you need to do is to drag them in onto the Uploads tab, and you'll see that they'll upload into your own library. So now I'm going to pretend that I was creating a blog about the growth and the really beauty and bloom of flowers. So let's start this one off with a closed sunflower. And now the sunflower is slightly opening. And there it is, open. And so what better, once we've got once we've got this great progression, is to add a little bit of text. So to add your own text, here on the left we have a text icon. So I'm going to select a little bit of text. And let's say this is 7 a.m. Now, if you know more about sunflowers than I do, I could very well be wrong, but just for design purposes, let's go with these timings. Now, you can easily copy and paste all of your elements in Canva as well, which is very handy. And you'll notice those grid lines that are appearing. They're your alignment icons. That one disappeared. And what they'll do is make sure that all of your text and images are aligning and looking really beautiful together on your canvas. All right, so now we can change it. Maybe, let's say 10 a.m. And then 1 p.m. So what you have here is a really original and professional graphic that shows the passing of time and shows that comparison that Steve showed us in some of those really big publications that are creating articles like this. And I guess what my advice is to figure out what your blog or what your brand is really about and what kind of images can you use to complement that. And once you have an idea, I mean, do some testing, see what works, and then really hone in on those different kind of design types that are working for you. And so just to quickly run you over to our layout library, this is our layout library, so I've just showed you a couple of layouts that you can use, but there are a whole range here that can be used for a whole different range of purposes. So experiment, be creative, and don't be afraid to design, because Canva really makes it just incredibly easy. And just before I pass back over to Steve, if you are looking for design advice or if you want to see some picture list posts in action, the design school really is a fantastic place to go. So our blog it has a lot of great topics that basically aim to teach everybody how to design and to really break down some of those sometimes inaccessible design concepts that people might think are too difficult or they don't know about, and really make it fun and easy to learn. And another great part of our design school is our tutorials. So if you're really looking for that confidence to get your design skills up to scratch, or you want to know how these big publications make their designs look so professional, why not take a couple of design tutorials? So really here we have them organized, broken down into different principles of design. So fonts, color, images, backgrounds. And here's my challenge to you all. I can almost guarantee, I remember when I started at Canva, I hadn't done any of these tutorials, and by the end, it was just incredible, the difference that it makes. You can really feel like you're a true design pro and you've gone to design school, which is really great. And I mean, if you are facilitating design in your workplace or in a teaching environment, we also have teaching materials to share that knowledge. So I welcome you all to open up any questions you have to me or to Steve. And if you'd like to know anything more about any of the design stuff I've talked to, feel free to reach out to me.